Good evening, everybody, and welcome back to Talking Philly Sports with your boy Matty B. Here on the Edge of Philly Sports Network. It is Tuesday nights. I'm back on Tuesday where I belong. It is 9 p.m. You're watching EOP. That means you're watching me, and I hope the heck that you are having a great election day. I hope you've done your civic duty for the day and you've gone out and voted for whoever the hell it is you wanted to vote for. And I wish your candidate or candidates the best of luck. Myself, I vote every election for the same person. That is me. That's right. I write myself in every election for every race that's humanly possible for every public office. One of these days, I'll pick up some momentum and maybe win. But it's not a political show. It's a sports show. It's a 4-4 show. So that's what we're going to talk about. Some things tonight. We're going to get into a lot of haps here in Philadelphia. It's a somber time for me, folks, and I think a somber time for a lot of people, especially if you were a Phillies fan, as we are coming to terms with the end of our season that occurred on Saturday night and the loss there of the World Series 4-1 in 6 games at the hands of the Houston Astros. I think I'm on step 3 of the 5-step of acceptance or of denial, or not denial, grieving, I guess is the word, loss, whatever. I think I've moved on to what's the one after denial? Is that the last one? Acceptance? Maybe that's where I'm at. Listen, and I'm going to give you a quick roundabout kind of summary of where I'm feeling on this thing. And we're going to get into a little bit more in depth about the Phillies here in a moment. But what is really kind of bothering me the most, what has bothered me the most throughout this entire process is the fact that I'm no longer on the Fighting's final every night. Yeah. I mean, does it sound self-absorbed? Does it sound egotistical? I don't know. But I don't know what to do with my time. You know, it was such a seriously, permanent part of my summer where every night I had to come on and do a post-game show. And now I don't do it every night. And that's probably been the hardest part for me to accept about the end of the season is that I'm not coming on the air every night talking Phillies. And I know that's going to take some time to get over. And maybe that's a good thing that I get to step back a little bit and not be and not have to do this every single night. I don't know, but I'm having the hardest time dealing with that aspect of the end of the season. But we're going to get into the Phillies. We're going to get into a little bit of what happened. We're going to get in a little bit of now that some distance has kind of been since Saturday, kind of the realization of what the season really was. And then what's next? What is next for this team? Free agency in Major League Baseball starts on Thursday, which is interesting because typically we would have to sit here and wait those 5 weeks after the regular season like everybody else would to get to free agency and kind of lament over it and kind of in our brains say, well, like, who's going to go, who's going to stay. But because of the fact that we went 6 games into the World Series, we get to enjoy free agency prep for about 4 days. And now it's time to start talking about it. And the Phillies have made some moves already. They've decided to kind of cut ties, at least initially, with some people. And we're going to get into some of that as well. We're also going to talk some Philadelphia Eagles, folks. That's right, 8-0. In one of the most probably unwatched Eagle games of the season last Thursday night out there in Houston, where the Eagles defeated the Texans to push their record to that 8-0 plateau. And I want to talk to you about where I think this team might be as an 8-0 team and where they stand in the NFC and more importantly, where I think they stand in the NFL as we get kind of deep into this stretch run of the second half, which will probably continue to start here next week against the Commanders. And I'm going to let you know where I think this team is or what I think this team is. And then, of course, we got the Flyers that are happening on right behind me. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Flyers on this show. We're going to talk more about the Flyers because we're immediately following the Flyers game tonight. I'm going to be coming back at you with another postgame show, Clear the Ice. The EOP Flyers postgame show will continue to kind of get its full, due starting tonight as of course, I just told you the hardest part about me dealing with the end of the Philly season is me not doing a post-game show. They had to throw me a bone, man. I had to get something. I had to do a post-game, something to get me through the next 6 months or, whatever it is, 197 days before pitchers and catchers report on Valentine's Day. Something had to come my way or I can't go into with like stone cold withdrawals, man. I would need help. I need to have to go to a rehab or something. So they threw me a bone with the Flyers post game. Now I'm just it's going to be fun talking some Flyers hockey with you guys now as we move into the winter months and get more into the appropriate time of the year type sports. And then finally, I am going to wrap it up with a little known sport that I have not really talked about much since last spring, and that's your Philadelphia 76ers. I'm going to let you know where I stand with them and why I haven't been talking about them so much. And it's maybe for some of the same reasons that a lot of other people haven't been talking about them, but my reasons go a little bit deeper, and we'll get into those as we move forward. But here, folks, I got to start off with what we'd start off with just really in every episode of Talking Philly Sports with Matty B, and that is this day in Philadelphia sports history. And I went through the archives, and I really couldn't find anything on this day in particular, November 8th. Then I looked at November 9th, and I'm like, you know what? There's one thing there. But then I looked the day ahead after that, November the 10th, and I saw something very interesting, and I wanted to bring it up tonight because I think to me it's very pertinent. And as I was as I was reading it and I was thinking about it some more, I got kind of nostalgic about it. And I remember this day very vividly. And I remember how just gut punching it was to hear this news as a 12-year-old kid on a Sunday morning back in 1985. So we'll talk about that and let's get into that, I guess. On this date, or I should say on November 10th, 2 days from this date in 1985, the Philadelphia region was shocked. I mean, shocked beyond belief. And I was shocked as a 12-year-old boy to wake up to the news that Pelly Lindbergh, the Flyers' outstanding young goalie, was killed in an automobile accident on the overnight hours between Saturday night and Sunday morning. I think he had just come off setting a record for the most consecutive shutouts for any goalie in the NHL. And he was out celebrating allegedly with his friends and some ladies and that weren't his girlfriend. And he took his Porsche and ran into a schoolyard, ran into a school. He ran into the steps of a school, and he was killed. And I remember this because not only was Pelly Lindbergh playing really well to start off that young 85 season, but the Flyers as a whole were really starting to kind of regain their dominance in the Patrick Division in the Wales Conference at that time. The year prior to that, the Flyers made a run all the way to the Stanley Cup Finals against the Edmonton Oilers. And now they were coming back for that kind of, secondary run. And we were only about a month into the season, but Pelly Lindbergh was standing on his head and was well on his way to cementing himself as one of the best goalies in all of NHL history. And I have no doubts in my mind that if he hadn't been killed and that he had the opportunity to play out his career, that he would have been the best goalie ever in Flyer franchise history and one of the best in NHL history as well. And to be honest with you, with that tragedy, began our legacy here in Philadelphia of goaltender issues. We never had a real goaltender since him. We've had a few pretenders. Ron Hextall, comes to mind, but never have we since Pelly Lindbergh had that franchise goalie. Now, something Carter Hart is that guy. To me, he's got some large shoes to fill. If we're trying to compare Carter Hart, Pelly Lindbergh, or Carter Hart and Bernie Perrant, there's some large shoes to fill there. And I don't think the young man is quite there, but it was definitely the day that we began that abyss of goalie life that we kind of floated in for until Carter Hart, I guess, showed up. So very solemn day on this day, November 10th, I should say, 1985, when Pelly Lindbergh was killed in an automobile accident on the early morning. It was a Sunday morning. It was the early morning hours. And absolute tragedy for a great young Flyer player who was well on his way to becoming one of the best at his position. All right, folks, let's transition now and let's talk some Phillies baseball. Again, started off at the top of the show saying it is a tough day. It's been a tough few days. Hey, Dave, how are you tonight? It's been a tough few days for a lot of people here in the Delaware Valley, and me particularly, because as I said to you at the opening, I've had the distinct pleasure and honor for the past 7 months to come on after every Phillies game to talk about it for an hour, talk about it for a half hour, talk about it for 20 minutes, talk about it for ever long as I could talk about it that evening. And now, like out of nowhere, it's been ripped from me. And I haven't had that opportunity over the last 3 nights. And it's been hurting me. I mean, the last 3 nights have been long nights for me. Boring nights, no baseball to watch. No sports really to watch. I mean, I caught some Nova basketball last night, but other than that, tonight, with the Flyers game, it's been a kind of a treat. I miss sports every night, and I'm dealing with of the withdrawals of that. I'm dealing with the physical effects it's having on me, uh, and it's not been easy. It's not been easy, man. I mean, I'm suffering over here, and no one seems to care. Yeah, throw me a bone. Well, they have. As I said, I'm gonna be doing the Clear the Ice to Fire show, but it's the fight and spinal was such a big part of my life and such a big commitment of my life that when you just kind of go from 0 to 100 or 100 to 0, it's been hard. But I'm dealing with it now. As far as the team goes, as we've had some time now to separate ourselves from that final game on Saturday to the end or to today, and it's sunk in and some of the realization of what this team was in 2022, what the expectations were of this team in 2022, and then what we actually achieved in 2022. And it's nothing but, to me, it's nothing but spectacular. Um, and we're going to get in more depth into this later on, maybe in the next couple of weeks, as the Fight and Spinal will be back for a 2022 Phillies season in review show. And that'll be coming up here sometime at the end of November-ish. So be on the lookout for that. But uh, as far as I'm concerned, when you look at what the expectations of this team were heading into the season, don't forget we had the lockout. We had a shortened spring training. We had the miracle moves of signing Kyle Schwarber and Nick Castellanos. We had those great nuggets, right? But we also had the realization that heading into the season, we still didn't have it. We still had some questions in the bullpen, a lot of questions in the bullpen. We had a starting rotation that pitched okay in 2021, but we weren't really sure about that. We had the Zach Eflin injury. Don't forget, Zach Wheeler showed up to camp hurt. Ranger Suarez showed up to camp hurt. Aaron Nola had his September issues that he was still kind of dealing with. So there was some question marks in that starting rotation. We didn't have a center fielder, folks. Remember how we kind of, bitched and moaned all last offseason about why we never addressed center field, why we were entering the season with Mickey Moniak, Adugal Herrera, Roman Quinn, and Matt Verling as our center fielders. Remember how pissed off you were? Remember how pissed off? I remember how pissed off I was. So we didn't have a center field situation. We had Alec Boehm, who, in my opinion, didn't deserve to be back with this team in 2022 based on how he finished the 2021 season. Major question marks at third base and some question marks at first base as well. But yet we put aside all that because of the potential what this team could be in the power department. We put aside our feelings that this team was far from a complete baseball team for what we could do in that power department. And as we sat back and watched the season unfold, and we watched some of the things happen with this team in 2022. And remember, don't forget, heading into this season, we had a lame duck manager. Everybody seems to forget that. Joe Girardi heading into this season was never given a contract. Now, I want you guys, and everybody shoes this as not being part of or a factor in what might have happened to Joe in 2022. And I'm not getting off this hill. Listen, Joe Girardi is a professional. He's a baseball guy. He's been playing baseball and coaching baseball and managing baseball for the better part of his entire life. That's all he knows. And he was given an opportunity to manage the Phillies. He was given a contract. But then after a couple seasons, one being a COVID-shortened season, a season in which the season was basically taken from 162 games down to 60 games. He was also given 2021, a team that competed to the very end. So he was given not the best circumstances to be the manager in, but he did the best he could with it. And then heading into the final year of his contract, he was told by his president of baseball operations that, you know what? You don't need another contract. It happens all the time in baseball. Jim Leland went into a season as a lame duck manager. That's fine. Joe is okay. I disagree. I think Joe was butthurt, to be upfront and plain. I think he was butthurt by not having a contract heading into 2022. Now, am I saying that affected the way he managed? No. The Binder Joe thing was kind of showing its ugly head in 2021. I get that. His tendency not to trust young rookie players was pretty evident throughout his entire time here. I get that. But I think there came a certain point, especially when the losses began to pile up, that he was just like, you know what? Screw it. I don't care. What were they going to do? Fire me? I don't have a contract anymore. So I think that kind of like added some fuel to the fire and led Joe Girardi down the path that eventually went down. Now, when the Phillies did make the move, I remember very specifically what this team was at 21 and 29. They were a team that got really good to above average starting pitching pretty much on the nightly basis. They were a team that was struggling with defense, especially at third and first base. They were a team that was struggling with the center field options because there was none. You had Mickey Moniak, who had a great spring. Everybody got really excited about his potential with the Phillies this season. Then on that last game of spring training, he breaks his hand. And I knew at that time, I was like, and now I felt so bad for him that day. I was like, you know what? That was it. That was his last chance. Because now he's going to go on the DL or the IL for about 2 months or whatever, 6-7 weeks. He's going to go back down to AAA. He might get an opportunity back with the Phillies, but he lost his mojo. He lost his groove. That's it. And of course, we all know what happened there. So we had massive questions at center field. We were getting no offensive production from that position. We were getting no offensive production pretty much from every position at that time, right? And then all of a sudden, with maybe the exception of Alec Bohm, he was pretty consistent early on. So we make a move and we fire Joe Girardi and we hire Rob Thompson, or we promote Rob Thompson from within. And what Rob Thompson does is pretty much what anybody would do in this situation. The opposite of what Joe Girardi was doing. Doesn't take brain science to figure that out. It wasn't working the way Joe was. So just do everything the opposite of what Joe would do. Play the young players, keep, trying to work some other, mixing and matching some different cogs around. And they got a little bit, they caught on fire. The weather started to warm up. They began to hit. Kyle Schwarber began to hit home runs. What was that? That June he hit 17 home runs or something like it was, or 12, something. Rhys Hoskins came out of his slump. The team really started to feast on that warm weather, and they started to feast on some opponents, right? They were beating teams that they had no business beating. Don't forget, they won the season series against the Dodgers. They won the season series against the Padres, the Brewers, the Cardinals. They held all these tiebreakers against all these teams that would eventually be playoff teams. With the exception, of course, of the Mets, where they struggled, and they struggled, of course, with the Braves. But they began to kind of catch fire and get a little bit of an identity and get a little bit more of some traction. They had that awesome June, that awesome June that got them right back in this thing. At the end of the month of June, I think they were like 23-9 or something like that in the month of June, and they were just on a torrid pace. Now they cooled off by mid-July. And by mid-July, I believe all the way out to the end of the season, they were a little bit above 500 team. But they did enough when they had to do it. And they got into the playoffs. And that's all we ever wanted, right? Remember that, folks? Remember back in March? I just want to get to the playoffs. I just want to end the streak. We haven't been to the playoffs since 2011. We got to get back to the playoffs. That's all I want. Because at least it'll kind of ignite the fire. Well, we got back to the playoffs, right? And I don't care how we did it. I don't care if we were the third wild card team. I don't care if we, I don't care how we did it. We got back. And then we find ourselves in the World Series. And then I know what happens at a certain point. When you get to the playoffs, everyone was just kind of high-fiving, hey, we made it. We got back to the playoffs. The streak is over. We're a playoff team again. Then they throw together a couple victories against the Cardinals. They move on to the NLDS. Then they beat the Braves, a team they had no business beating. Then all of a sudden, we're in the NLCS. And by that point, everyone's starting to think, you know what? Why not us? And then when they beat the Padres and they got themselves into the World Series, it was all bets were off. It was anybody's series. The Phillies were the hot team. The Phillies were the mojo team. But they went up against the team in the Astros that, let's face it, on paper and in reality, were just a deeper, better baseball team. And that's really what it came down to. And I'm not saying that the Astros dominated the Phillies. No sense of the word am I saying that. But the Astros handled their business when they had to handle their business. The Astros took that 2-1 deficit in the World Series and said, all right, fellas, it's enough time. Let's stop messing around with them and let's do what we got to do. And that's what they did. I'm going to die on the hill of Game 4 of the World Series as being the turning point of the series. You had all the momentum going your way. And you come out in Game 4 and you get combined no hit and lose 5-0. that sucked out that sucked out the life of me. I remember coming out of game 4 thinking, we missed an opportunity here. I'm not liking where we are right now because now it's not just now all of a sudden it's equal. It's house money. They got home field advantage back. It was such a swing to me, such a turning point in the World Series that I kind of had a feeling um, that this was it. I really did. I truly did. And obviously that was the case. And then we get to the end of the series and just the offensive ineptitude that kind of took us to the rest of the way. What was it? 71 strikeouts in the World Series, an all-time record. You know, the Phillies as a team, and that's been what people have been kind of like up in arms about. How could they strike out 71 times? How can they be this offensively inept in critical situations with runners on base? Well, folks, have you not been watching all season? That's what the Phillies have been all year. All year long, it's been the same thing. During the 2022 regular season, the Phillies averaged 8 strikeouts a game. That meant that literally everybody in the starting lineup, 1 through 8, say, and this wasn't the way it was, but just think of it this way: 1 through 8 struck out at least one time in every game of the 2022 regular season. That is unheard of. The team struck out over 1,300 times in 2022 regular season. Regular season. Now they struck out over 1,300 runners or batters as well. So they were doing it on the pitching side of things, right? They were getting theirs, but they were also struggling. And the biggest stat of the year, the stat that haunted me through the hot, torturous summer nights, was that runners left in scoring position with 2 outs. In 2022, the Phillies left 571 runners on base in scoring position with 2 outs, averaged out to about 3.5 a game. 3.5. Obviously, there's no half games, there's no half runs. So let's round up the rule of 5. Let's round it up to 4. They were basically leaving 4 runners in scoring position with 2 outs per game. That is high. That is too high. As far as straight up leaving runners on base, they left over 1,045 runners on base in 2022. That averages out to about 6.5 a game. Again, let's round up using the rule of 5, 7 runners a game left on base. Unheard of type numbers. So when we got to the 2022 postseason and people began getting up in arms about this team's inability to drive in runs, I was just like really level-headed about it because let's look at these numbers in the postseason. In the postseason, the Phillies left 47 runners in scoring position with 2 outs. That averages out to about 3 a game. Okay? That's about what they were averaging in the regular season. No new news to me. The Phillies as a team struck out in the 2022 World postseason, not the World Series, but the entire postseason, 154 times in 16 or 17 games. 154 times in 17 games. That's 9 a game, folks. That is 9 strikeouts a game. Their pitching staff, though, was averaging 8.8 strikeouts a game. So they were striking out 9 a game, but the team was also striking out 9 times a game. Just boggles your mind. It really does. And then the left on base, the Phillies as a team in the 2022 postseason left 87 runners on base for about 5 runners a game. There is your World Series, folks, or there's your World Series. You're averaging 9 strikeouts a game, and you're averaging leaving 5 runners on base a game. You don't have to look much further than that. The pitching was there. I'm not going to get on the Thompson thing about pulling out Wheeler in that game. It wasn't in the 5th inning or 6th inning for Alvarado. Yeah, Alvarado probably really would like to have that pitch back. That was a good pitch. He went down and got it, and got all of it. But to sit here and tell you and try to sell me or sell any Phillies fan on the fact that the Phillies lost the World Series because of pitching, their pitching, that's just ridiculous. They lost it because of their inability to move runners in, to drive runners in and put bat to ball. Pure and simple. You don't got to look any further than that. You don't got to get in the weeds of analytics about it at all. They struck out 154 times in the postseason, 9 times a game. They left 87 runners on base in the postseason, 5 runners a game. That's it, folks. That's all you got to look at. That's all you got to wrap your head around. That is it. And all this other stuff about, well, if we would have just defensive replacement here or Reese Hoskins booting the ball. Yeah, I mean, it's been pathetic and pitiful watching him play first base for years now. But that's not why we lost. We lost because he couldn't hit the baseball. We lost because Nick Castellanos cannot hit a baseball. We lost that Kyle Schwarber only can hit a baseball out of the park. We lost because we weren't a complete team. We lost because we were the same team that started the 2022 season and that we fulfilled the expectations as a fan base we had for this team. They made the playoffs. Everything else was just a cherry on top. So at the end of the day, and more importantly, at the end of the season, as we sit here on November the 8th, you got to look back and really kind of just tip your hat to the Phillies. Don't tip your hat to the Astros. No, they got taken to school by a team that wasn't complete. They got taken to school by a team that struck out 9 times a game in the postseason. They almost lost the World Series to that. So don't tip your cap to the Astros. Tip your cap to the Phillies, where it really deserves. They had no business being in the World Series. They are not a complete team. But they have provided us a couple different things here in Philadelphia. They provided us with hope, a renewed sense of hope. And maybe we can stop inviting all those blue chairs to Citizen Bank Park. Maybe we can put some bodies in those chairs in 2023. Don't forget, opening day, April 6th, 2023, Phillies and Reds, home opener. That's not opening day, but it's the home opener. Be there for the ring ceremony and the unveiling of the 2022 NLCS flag. Sure, they're going to get championship rings. Yeah. And Rob Thompson is going to be your National League All-Star manager of 2023. Don't forget that. He gets that honor. So the legacy of this season will continue. But we got to build on it. And more specifically, the Phillies got to build on it. And how do they do that? Well, they've already began. With free agency being literally right around the corner, the Phillies have made some decisions with some players. Aaron Nola's option year was picked up. Kyle Gibson, Corey Knebel, Noah Syndergaard have all declared for free agency. Zach Eflin and the Phillies mutually declined his player or his club option. Gene Segura's club option was denied or declined. So the Phillies have somewhat set the chess pieces in motion. Now, does that mean Gene Segura, Zach Eflin, Noah Syndergaard, Kyle Gibson are not coming back next year? No, it doesn't. It doesn't mean that at all. It means that going out into the Phillies and their client there have decided that whatever deal that they had or existing deal that they had was just not good enough anymore. And the only real player out of all those players who I mentioned that the Phillies are not moving on or moving on from is Zach Eflin. That's not concerning, but that's puzzling to me. Is Zach Eflin mad about being moved to the bullpen this year? Did he feel, kind of slighted by that? Because I've always been trying to wrap my head about why Zach Eflin was moved to the bullpen, not why he was moved there, but why was he left there? He had a soft tissue injury to his knee. It wasn't ligament, it wasn't muscle, it wasn't tendons, it was a soft tissue injury. Why was he, and I know why he was put there to give him some work at the back end of the season as he came off the DL, but why was he left there? It turned out it was a pretty decent move. We got to see what we really have in Ranger Suarez. But I don't understand why he was left there. With his decision to move on and not be part of, right now at least, not be part of the Phillies, it really kind of throws things into some different, type of thinking for me when it comes to the starting rotation. And the stuff that the Phillies may have to do in the free agency market, which I didn't really want the Phillies to have to be messing around with pitchers in this free agency, because I honestly didn't want um kind of wanted to look past that, for 1 year, because I know we have some horses there in the system that are making their way through, and that they could potentially be ready to go here soon, right? In Abel and Painter. I understand that. And I'm going to get to them too here in a minute. But I really thought that if we could hold this rotation together for 1 more year of Eflin, and maybe bring back Syndergaard, or bring back Syndergaard, maybe go out and sign a low level guy or a middle type road free agent for your number three. Keep Eflin in the bullpen as your closer. Now you got a closer, and now you got a decent rotation that should get you to Painter and Abel. But now with their decision to move on from Eflin, not only does that potentially create a hole in the rotation, but it creates a hole in the bullpen. So I'm going to be interested to see, starting Thursday night at midnight, or tomorrow night at midnight, I think it is, when free agency begins, where the Phillies are going with this and what the rotation might look like in 2023. And everyone's sitting here, and I've heard this from few different people over the last few days about Andrew Painter and Nick Abel. Painter more than Abel. Well, Painter should be playing for the Phillies next season. Are you insane? This kid's never pitched above Double-A. And you want to put him in the Phillies next year? He's never pitched above Double-A. Okay, he's got some great stuff, and he's rising pretty fast through the system. He was drafted in 2021, and he finished the season with Reading. So you want him to bypass his AAA season and throw him right into the majors? Come on, man. We're better than this. We're better than this as fans. You can't do that to him. Painter's day will come. It's just not going to come in 2023. All right? There's just no way I can justify that, or I think any of the Phillies could justify that. Will he come to spring training for the Phillies? Most definitely. Him and Abel both, I fully expect to be to be in camp with them and pitching in spring training games. But do you think that they're going to see something in spring training, which is glorified AAA ball anyway, and be like, "Woo, yeah, they're ready," and then them be part of the rotation? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. The ceiling on Painter and Abel to start next season would be both of them having a decent camp with the Phillies, getting some major league exposure, and then maybe starting the season with AAA. Maybe. More than likely, they're probably going to start the season back where they left off in Double-A, and then work their way up and be in AAA by May or June. And then after that, maybe we give Painter a shot later in the season if we need him. Somebody gets hurt. September call-up, however you want to do this. Maybe we give him a shot. But to rely on him as part of your rotation in 2023 is absolutely insane. He's not ready, nor is Abel. But their day will come. That's why I thought keeping together this rotation for 1 more year without having to break the bank on anybody. And I don't think they're going to break the bank on anybody anyway when it comes to starting pitching, because they're seeing the same thing I think we see with Painter and Abel coming in the very near future. But if we could have held on to Eflin and moved him back into that number 3 hole, and then maybe signed Syndergaard to a user-friendly deal, one-year deal, put him at 5, then you got Wheeler, Nola, Eflin, Suarez, Syndergaard. I'm okay with that rotation in 2023. But now you got potentially Eflin, and again, it's just really weird. What did he stand to make this year? $15 million, and now he walked away from that for what? I mean, that's pretty good money for a guy that's had injury problems over the last 2 seasons. What does he think he's going to find somewhere else? So I don't know if that's all like business there, or if there's something personal going on between the Phillies and Zach Eflin, and why they both mutually declined an option. So that's going to be a little bit something that I'm going to keep my eye on throughout the postseason, about where the Phillies are headed with their starting rotation, as well as their bullpen. Because once again, we're going to be losing Hand. We're going to be losing Knable. We're going to be losing Robertson. I forgot to name those guys as their free agents as well. So we're going to have to replace them. And the other name I heard was thrown around was Bailey Falter. Bailey Falter should not be in our rotation next season. I fully expect Bailey Falter to be part of our bullpen as a long reliever. Absolutely. But to say that he should be part of the rotation, he's not ready yet. He's not. He didn't show like he was ready, especially when we really needed him. So Bailey Falter does fit into the future, just not as a rotational piece for me. So now we move on to the offense, which is probably the most, absolutely in my mind, the most key element of the Phillies' progressions. This offense simply has to get better. We simply need people in this offense that can put the ball in play without putting it over the fence. I cannot believe I'm saying this like this. I'm saying I don't want any more home run hitters. We have too many of them. We need guys that can move runners in. We need guys that can hit gap doubles. We need guys that can hit 285, 15 homers, 73 runs. We need those kind of guys. And we need them bad. We need about 2 or 3 of them. And where we're going to play them, I don't know. Obviously, the first position that we're all going to talk about is first base and Rhys Hoskins. I am on board with everybody else by saying that I 100% agree with you that the Rhys Hoskins experiment has to end. We've seen enough. It's time to move on from him. He needs to change the scenery, and we need it as well. When he is on, he is a difference maker. He changes the dynamic of a game. But when he is off, boy, is he a difference maker, and boy, does he change the dynamic of a game. And I just can't do it anymore. I can't go through the April through June slump and then the 6 weeks of torrid hitting and then back into a slump. I can't live my life with holding my breath on every ground ball hit down the first base line or every ground ball hit to the infield where a play has to be made at first base. I can't live my life like that anymore. It's time to move on from Rhys Hoskins. How they do that and what they get in return from a guy that's entering his final year of salary arbitration before he hits free agency, I don't know how they're going to do that. Is there a potential chance that he ends up staying with this team because of that reason? Yeah, absolutely. Is there a potential that he walks away in 2024 as a free agent and we get nothing for him? Absolutely. Just like Aaron Nola. But to say that he should not be your number one priority to try to move him is foolish too. It's time. It's time to look at other options. It's time to look at another option at that position. And a lot of people have said, well, what about JT? He's getting up there. Those knees are not going to last forever behind the plate. And I fully agree. But I don't know what you do with catcher then. Garrett Stubbs is a good little depth piece. He's a good little insurance policy, but he is not a starting catcher. Now, I would be all on board, and I was all on board at one time with moving JT to first when we had Logan O'Hoppe in the system. But when we moved him, we set back our catcher position by at least 5 years. Rafael Marchand, in the AAA catcher, is Garrett Stubbs 3.0. He's a defensive specialist. He doesn't have much power. He's not a contact hitter. His offense leaves a lot to be determined, but he's a defensive specialist. We already have one of those. So I don't know what you do at catcher if that's the route you want to go by moving JT over there. And trading Logan O'Hoppe, that's why I was against moving away from Logan O'Hoppe, is because of that very, very same reason that JT's knees are not going to last forever. And having an option to move JT to first with O'Hoppe in the system, potentially making the team in 2023, would be a lot better than saying, okay, we're going to move JT to first and Garrett Stubbs and Rafael Marchand are our catching options in 2023. That doesn't make any sense to me. So I was really concerned about them trading Logan O'Hoppe. I wasn't for it. You guys probably remember me saying that I wasn't. And now we're going to have to live life with the catching situation and with potentially JT getting another year older behind that plate. So I don't know what you do with catcher. I don't know what to do with first base. And the other position of upgrade on offense, obviously we're going to talk shortstop, right? With the departure of Gene Segura, the big name being thrown out there is Trey Turner. Now, Trey Turner is a second baseman, or he's a shortstop. Obviously, we have a shortstop and Bryson Stott, but that's going to be absolutely nothing to move a shortstop to second. He can play second. And we bring Trey Turner in. He fits a couple different needs. One, he's a leadoff piece that we desperately need on this team. We need a leadoff hitter so bad. We need a leadoff hitter like I need a hole in the head. We need a leadoff hitter like I need to get Howie Roseman fired. That's how desperate we need a leadoff hitter here in this town. And I think, obviously, Trey Turner fits that bill. And he's a leadoff hitter that can hit 30 home runs, but he also hits 285 a season. Now, he's got some postseason issues that have to be kind of addressed, and I'm sure if the day comes where we sign Trey Turner, we're going to get into that too. But right now, on paper, Trey Turner just fits and checks a lot of boxes that this team needs checked. So I am definitely on the sign Trey Turner train. Move Bryson Stott over to second, and there's your infield, right? Third base is Alec Bohm, help me God. And then first base, we got to figure out. Outfield, what are you going to do out there? What can you do out there? You got Schwarber, Castellanos. That's left field, right? That's left and right field. You got Bryce Harper and then the UCL issue with Bryce Harper. Everyone seems to forget about that. That's not going to heal on its own. He needs surgery. How long is he going to be out for that? Why hasn't he gotten the surgery yet? What's the latest on the surgery? Can anybody tell me that? The Phillies have gone dark when it comes to that. They're not giving out any information. I don't know if any information is being asked. When's Dave Dombrowski's season-ending press conference? When is all this stuff going to happen so we can get an idea of what the situation with Bryce Harper's shoulder is? It's not going to go away. If he gets the Tommy John, don't expect to see Bryce Harper playing in Philadelphia until after the All-Star break. So then that means what? Late August, early September is when he's rounding in the form. Can we weather the storm that long without him? That's like literally 3/4 of the season. Just about all of it, really. What do we do there? The universal DH in the NL was both a blessing and a curse to this team. It was a blessing because we were able to keep Bryce Harper playing baseball in 2022. It was a curse because we kept playing Bryce Harper in 2022, and there was nothing else we could do. This team actually played quite a bit, I wouldn't say better, but a little bit more confident when Bryce was down with that broken finger. When we had the opportunity to kind of mix and match that DH position a little bit more, give guys a day off, slide somebody over there, slide JT over there. But when we lock in Bryce Harper, and obviously you're going to lock him in because he's going to play every day. He's a two-time reigning MVP, and would have been the World Series MVP, and obviously was the NLCS MVP. You're going to play him every day, but it locked us out of certain defensive situations out in the outfield. It made us have to rely on Kyle Schwarber, who's not built to play left field every day. Made us rely on Nick Castellanos, who made some great defensive plays in right field for us, especially in the postseason. But it limited our possibilities or our options with that. So what is Bryce Harper going to do? And what are the Phillies going to do in the interim when Bryce Harper is down? Do we go sign a right fielder? I think we'd have to, right? We'd have to find somebody. Is there any options internally? I don't see any. But mixing and matching and getting people in and out of that DH position needs to be the Phillies' also priority next year. We can't have Bryce Harper. We can't have anybody only playing DH. Just doesn't work, and didn't work for this team either. Now, Nick Castellanos is the last thing I want to talk about the Phillies, and then we're going to move off of that. And as I said, we are going to do an in-depth season-end review show on the Fightins Final here coming up in a few weeks. And then as we move through the offseason, we'll be coming at you with some more Fightins Finals intermittently as we get ready for the season in 2023. But old Nicky Bats, listen, I rode him pretty hard all season. I rode JT pretty hard. I rode Hoskins pretty hard. I rode Schwarber pretty hard. And rightfully so. Neither one of the signings. And I remember the day very vividly when it was like what, within 24, 48 hours of each other that we signed Schwarber and then Castellanos at the end of the lockout. Remember that? Remember how excited we were? I remember how excited I was. But both of them underperformed. I don't care. Don't give me the Schwarber 50 some odd home runs. I got that. All right. I understand that. But I can't live in the world of Kyle Schwarber. I can't live on home run or nothing, especially out of my leadoff hitter. All right. And don't try to sell me on anything about I don't want to hear it. The home run or nothing, I don't like it. I don't like it at all, especially out of my leadoff hitter. If Schwarber's batting fifth or sixth, maybe I could have lived with it a little bit better. But the home run or nothing was garbage, and I don't want to do that anymore. I need hitters. Okay. But obviously, when you have a guy like Kyle Schwarber that can change a game with literally one flick of the wrist, it's huge. But we had no protection for Schwarber. He was batting in the wrong spot. He doesn't need to be in leadoff. There's no indications that he might not come out of that position. I mean, no one's said it that he's not going to be the leadoff guy. I don't know if the Phillies are leaning that direction, but he can't be. He's got to be moved down in the lineup. Castellanos has got to figure it out. The guy at times this season looked clueless at the plate, right up to the very end. He did seem to kind of work on his plate discipline a little bit as the World Series kind of wrapped up, but that didn't equate to nothing. Nothing. No bat on ball. So those two got to find themselves in 2023, and the Phillies got to do what they got to do to find them. Put Kyle Schwarber in a better situation in 2023. Give him some buffer in that lineup. Get him up on at bat with people on. Turn some of those solo home runs into 3-run shots. Find a spot that doesn't have as much pressure for Castellanos to bat 7th, maybe 8th, maybe in that lineup. See if he can work himself out of the slump that way. We didn't do nothing to protect them guys. We didn't do nothing to work on that. We set them up for failure a little bit. But we had no other choice. There was nothing behind them. So pulling in some depth, pulling in some contact hitters, resolving the leadoff spot, they're key crucial in the offensive free agency picture of the Philadelphia Phillies. And listen, I've spent about the entire show talking about the Phillies, so let's pivot off of them. But the bottom line about the Phillies, and I'll say this about them and we'll move on. It was a great year. I enjoyed it. It sucks to see it go. I miss it. I miss it already. And we should revel in it. We should revel what they did because they shouldn't have been here. They weren't a world championship caliber team. They were an incomplete team that was trending in the right direction. So now that we have the blueprint, it's time to go out in 2023 and let's get the pieces that we need here to sustain another run. And let's get that World Series trophy in 2023. So let's pivot off of the Phillies onto the Eagles. And as I said, spoke in length about the Phillies. So we're going to summarize the Eagles. We're going to summarize the 6 Flyers. And because I'm going to be talking about the Flyers here on the Clear the Ice show. Don't forget Clear the Ice coming up immediately after, pretty much after the show. There'll be a few more minutes, but don't forget Clear the Ice. We'll be talking some Flyers Blues. But Eagles, real quick. So let me check out this. So Austin chimes in. He was at the same boat as me. He wanted to move JT to first and let the pipeline fill that void. Yeah, well, we don't have that anymore, Austin, and that's kind of a shame. That's why I was really against the whole Hoppy move. I really was. The life the Phillies put into the city was amazing. Proud of what they did and hope they can build on it. Yeah, me too. And that's all you can ask for. It's really all you can ask for. So, real quick, Eagles 8-0. Coming off of the Sunday or the 29-17 victory over the Texans, that was very unimpressive, and everybody's attention was really focused other places. But there's legitimate talk about this team in a Super Bowl right now, and it's substantial. Is it substantial? Is it valid? Is it relevant? It is. That's right. I'm saying it. It is, and it is because of a couple of things. One, the NFL has fallen off a cliff in 2022. I don't know what the hell's going on out there. You got teams like the Jets that are probably going to make the playoffs this year. You got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Los Angeles Rams. Both look like garbage. Aaron Rodgers is going through some severe Devontae Adams withdrawals. The Packers look lost. The only team in the NFC that I see anywhere near competition for the Philadelphia Eagles is the San Francisco 49ers. That's it. As far as the rest of the NFL, what? Buffalo? Kansas City? So guess what? It's a real chance that the Eagles are going to make a Super Bowl run. And they should. They're playing like it. Everyone wants to jump on my back about it too. Because I picked them to finish 8-9. I also picked them, and I also have this little obsession about Howie Roseman and not liking him. I'm not backing off of any of it because I think they're doing it with smoke and mirrors. I do. They're a good team. They're a better team than they were in 2021. They're getting better. They're significantly improved at wide receiver. They're significantly improved at quarterback. Significant. Defense still up in the air. They got gashed last week on the ground by the Texans running back. What's his name? Pierce? He run for like 140 yards. The run defense has not been good all season. Now, what happens when we have to go up against a Christian McCaffrey? Potentially, right? I don't know. Offensively, there's probably not more of a dominant first half team in the NFL than the Philadelphia Eagles. Unfortunately for the Eagles, the game is played in two different halves. Second half, not so much. The Eagles have scored 56 points. Is that right? 56 points? Let me see. I got it written down here. I'm sorry, 64 points in the second half in 2022. 64 points. That averages out to about 8 points a half this season. Under 10 points they've scored on average in the second half of 2022. People are going to hit me with the whole, well, they've been ahead for so long. They're up by so much. They're kind of, playing that prevent style, the bend don't break. They're just trying to, work clock. Don't give me that. Because they've gotten better over the last couple of weeks of scoring points. But 64 points in the second half, averaging 8 points a half. That's not what you want out of a team that you expect to go on a Super Bowl run. There's some issues there. What's happening in the second half? What's happening with these defenses that they're allegedly running all over in the first half? Are they making the adjustments at halftime and Nick Sirianni and crew are not? That's what it looks like to me. It looks like that Nick Sirianni is being out-coached in the second half consistently. But they're finding ways to win, and that really kind of, at the end of the day, all that matters. So the Eagles are looking at 8-0 heading into the Commanders game on Monday Night Football next week. Now, the Eagles face, going forward for the rest of this season, wrap your heads around this one, folks. And as it stands right now, going forward for the rest of the season, 3 teams with records over 500. That's it. That's it. So the realistic possibilities that the Eagles might finish the season 17-0, I'm starting to think that they might. But it's smoke and mirrors. It is. They're better. They're not 8-0 better. They've played a horrible schedule. I understand that they don't make up their own schedule. I understand that they don't go out there and petition to play teams, certain teams every year. And I also believe, and I also understand that a lot of people, me included, picked this schedule to kick their butt this year based on how they ended 21 and what I thought they did not make significant upgrades at certain positions. And they did. So the NFL has fallen off a cliff. It's time for the Eagles to strike. So a possible real Super Bowl drive is definitely in the future for this team. And it's been fun to watch. But there's just something uneasy for me watching this team. Something that screams the other shoe's going to drop at any moment while watching this team play. I just feel that way. And it's not good old-fashioned Howie hate either. I'm just telling you, when I watch them play, there's moments of games where they're dominant and they can't be stopped by anybody. But then there's large stretches of the game where they go into this funk and they can't stop anybody and they can't move the ball. So I have a very uneasy feeling about this team. And I'm not all in yet. And I don't know if I will be. I just haven't seen enough substantial. I don't know. It's just weird. It really is. And I'm trying to get through it. I really am. But 8-0 coming up Monday night. They got the Commanders looking to go 9-0, probably will. And really don't look the schedule, as I mentioned, 3 teams remaining on the schedule that are over 500 the rest of the way. Absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. Austin hits me back. The progression of Jalen Hurts in the offseason was substantial. Yep. The addition of AJ Brown has already paid dividends. Yeah, no, I can't deny that. You can catch Austin, by the way. He's the attacking third guy. He does our union thing. And by the way, not a soccer guy, but the union also kind of, gave us a gut punch on Saturday because they made it to the MLS championship game and they lost the what is it? The LA. I want to say Express, but that was their old USFL team. I don't know I don't know their name. The Los Angeles team. So go ahead and check out Austin and all the guys over there at the attacking third. I'm gonna put up the schedule here in a little bit, but yeah, it has. The progression of Jalen Hurts has been amazing, and AJ Brown obviously has paid dividends. AJ Brown right now, I'm going to put him in the category of T.O. as T.O. meant to us when he was an Eagle, and I'm based on what he's done this year. It's been absolutely amazing to watch, and let's hope he can keep it up. Let's hope he can. Now, of course, Jalen Hurts, is the time to talk about contract extension and being the cornerstone of the franchise. Is he the new franchise quarterback? I mean, if he continues to play this way, you can't deny that. I don't think he's a franchise quarterback. I really don't. But you can't deny his progression and what he's done. I just there's something to me very uneasy about this team, and I'm just not buying in on it. I just don't believe in them. I don't. I don't know why. I'm trying to, and it's not because of Howie. I'm just not. I don't believe in them. I don't believe that they're as good as they're playing. But I want them to win. But I'm just really thinking they're going to let us down at the worst moments this season. All right, real quick on to the Flyers. 6-3-2 heading into tonight's game against the St. Louis Blues. And what can you say about the Flyers? And we'll get into the here on the postgame show. They won tonight. They beat the Blues, who are scuffling bad. Flyers are doing it with spit and duct tape, man. And they're buying in on what Tortorella's selling. It's been amazing to watch them play. As again, right after this, we're going to transition to the I think it's at 10:30, even though the game is over. But we're going to transition to clear the ice and talk some Flyers hockey. So I'm going to leave a lot of the Flyers on the bone here. And let's move to my final topic of the night because I've been going on and ranting and raving for an hour. Let's talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. Folks, here's the deal and why I have not spoken much about the Sixers at all since the end of the playoffs and why I probably won't talk about much of them going forward. I am not in at all on this team. I'm a big fan of the trade Joel Embiid last year group. I still think they should have moved him. I think his window is closing. Is he a dominant force in this league? 100% he is. Could he give us a king's ransom in a trade dividend? 100%. And I think the time now is to trade him. And I think it's past now, actually. I don't like the moves they made on the offseason. They are the same team they were this year than they were last, and they were the year before. Daryl Morey doesn't seem to know what he's doing. I was okay with the James Harden bringing him back, but to me they have not substantially upgraded at all. They are still a second round exit playoff team, in my opinion. And Glenn, because he's not Doc. There's only one Doc in this town, and it's not Rivers. It's Irving. Should have been fired last year, and he's back again. And it's the same. It's the same circus, different clowns, and that's exactly what the Sixers are to me. And until Glenn Rivers is fired, I won't speak about the Sixers because I'm not in on them. I really am not. I don't think they're a good team. I don't like the brand of basketball they play. They're putting too much on Maxey, and Joel Embiid is going to literally pass his window of opportunity to bring us a championship, and we're going to get nothing for him when we do eventually trade him. So I'm just not digging at all what the Sixers are all about right now. And until they fire Rivers, I'm not going to talk about them. I'm not. And Daryl Morey needs to get fired too, but one step at a time. So, folks, that's it. That's going to do it for me tonight. I want to thank you guys for coming back. It's been been hectic the last few weeks. I don't think I was on at all last week, and then the week before that, I was on like Monday night or something because we were trying to kind of dance in between the Philly raindrops of the postseason. So it's been tough, but I appreciate you guys sticking it out with me and being there with me through it all. As I mentioned, it was a great run of a Philly season. We got Flyers hockey heating up. Let me go and let me pay some bills. I reminded myself to pay those bills. This is the lineup on EOP this week. Last night you had the Sully squad and you had some Sixers Suns post game. Sixers won that game. Tonight you had the Kelly Green Hour, Birds of the Round Table, myself talking Philly sports, Matty B, some chalk talk, and clear the ice, Flyers Blues. We're going to talk that here in probably about a half an hour. So look at all this great stuff that's on the schedule. This is our new stabilized end of the Phillies postseason schedule. It'll probably pretty much stay this way until the Eagles really start ramping up their playoff push, and then things will get all thrown out of whack again. But continue to be looking on the network for some great content. As I mentioned, the Fight Final will be back here in the next couple of weeks or so, as we'll do a season end show. And then we're looking to do a couple of Hot Stove episodes as we move through the winter and get you ready for the 2023 MLB and Philly season. But until we do that, there's a bunch of stuff to keep you occupied. There is not a reason to look any further than EOP and the Painted Lines and Devereaux Sports for some quality Philadelphia sports entertainment. And you know who else provides you some Philadelphia quality sports entertainment? That's Philly Sports Trips. Look at all the stuff they got going on. Their next trip is coming up here at the end of the month to Indianapolis. Don't forget the home tailgate parties over at the Gatehouse. Just head over to phillysportstrip.com. Check out all they got to offer. Phillies or Sixers trips, Flyers trips. The spring trainings trip for next year is already out. Go over there and check them out and see what they got to give you and offer. And don't forget, if you need this individual service, if you have problems with workman's comp or questions about workman's comp, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, or criminal law, Dave Cherry is the guy you want to call. You want to call 610-565-0300. Tell him that EOP and Matty B sent you. And if you're in bar, the most Delco bar in Delco or in the world, actually, Dolan's Bar in there in Ridley Park. Go down there and enjoy yourself a gritty sandwich. On me, by the way. Tell him to put it on old Matty B's tab. I've never been in there before, but you know what? Tell him to put it on my tab, and they'll do it. All right, folks. That is going to do it for me. Thank you for joining me. Great night of talk. Great night of me ranting. Thanks for those who got involved. I'll be back next week and be on the lookout for the Clear the Ice, the Flyers post-game show. We'll be following the show up here in a little bit. Until then, what is it? What do they say? That is the news, and I'm out of here.